Welcome in to Palmetto Sports Daily on this fine Monday. Caroline Soro here, joined by Julia, Teagan, and Kevin. And after a roller coaster of a year where we didn't know where it was going to take us, we didn't know what was going on from week 1 to 18, really, the Carolina Panthers season has come to a close. They hosted their first playoff game in a decade against the Los Angeles Rams on Saturday in the NFC wildcard round. It was a hard-fought game. Not a lot of people gave the Panthers a chance in this one. The spread was double digits. But the Rams ended up coming back, walking it off with a touchdown at the very end. They end up winning 34-31. But this place was electric. I believe Dave Canales' words were absolutely electric to describe Bank of America Stadium. As you see there, Superman himself was in the building getting things started with the pounding of the drum. Fans were going crazy for Cam Newton out there. That was a big deal. Carolina actually trailed 14-0 in this game. I know I mentioned it was back and forth. They took their first lead at the start of the fourth quarter. The 4 fourth quarter lead changes, I read a tweet somewhere saying that ties for the most in NFL history in a playoff game. Really exciting there, but a lot of mixed emotions because, of course, the Panthers wanted to win their first playoff game in quite some time, right? And they did not. Coming up just a few plays short, their final drive halting there at the very end. They could not get it done. Panthers players feeling that mix of emotion, a little bit of disappointment, a little bit of pride for what they accomplished this season.
We're all human right now. It's fresh, but again, I love this team, love this organization. I'm super excited for us.
Again, I can't even speak on how great that crowd was. Man, I wish we would have did it for them. They was engaged the whole game. Even when we went down a little bit, they were still engaged. And credit to the guys, we kept fighting. We literally gave them something to cheer for to the end, man, until it wasn't nothing to cheer for. So what it was, that was one of the coolest experiences I ever had. So that was dope.
This is a tough business, and you're going against the best every single week. So, man, I'm just so proud of our team for, just showing the will to fight, bouncing back after losses, going out and beating teams that we were said not, where we weren't supposed to beat. So, I mean, man, I'm thankful for this team, thankful for this opportunity.
Well, Panthers players like Derek Brown in the locker room were adamant that this is the standard now. The Panthers expect to be in the playoffs, going back that they are not the Panthers of old, and they expect to build on what they built this season. They did finish the regular season 8-9, though, wound up in the playoffs despite having a losing record. Kevin, I know that was a point of emphasis for you when they made the playoffs. What do you make of how they went out in the first round, and what do you make of what they need to do over the offseason?
Well, oddly, I feel more confident in this team coming off a season-ending loss than I did at probably any point during the season. They played really well against the Rams on Saturday and defied a lot of expectations. Like you said, they were a double-digit underdog going into this one, but they played great. They had the lead twice in the fourth quarter, including late. I was extremely disappointed watching that game in the final drive for the Rams when it looked like the Panthers defense just went into a prevent and just let Matt Stafford do pretty much anything he wanted. And I was baffled by that decision. My 14-year-old was sitting there watching the game with me, and he said, why are they just backing, why are they just playing a prevent defense? He didn't understand. I couldn't tell him what the deal was either. So I was baffled by that decision. I think there needs to be a serious discussion with the defensive leaders about why that happened and what the call was and what the thought was, and giving the possible MVP of the league just the chance to throw the ball all over the field and march right down to get the go-ahead score with under 2 minutes to go. I thought that's a decision that needs to be talked about a little bit more. When you look forward, there's a lot more to talk about as well. It sounds like Bryce Young is going to have his fifth-year option picked up during this offseason, so that kind of gives you a little bit more stability at the quarterback position. Rico Dowdle talked yesterday when they were cleaning out their locker rooms, and it sounds like he wasn't happy with his number of carries going down over the last couple of games. So he's a free agent going into this year, so he might be looking for a new opportunity. So Teagan, it looks like running back may be another spot of need for the Panthers going into the draft.
Yeah, it looks like they have to answer a couple of questions here. I know that we were talking about Bryce Young a couple of weeks ago, and if he could be the franchise quarterback here, if they were going to pick up that fifth year. And based off of what I saw, in this playoff game, I want him to come back. I want to see him play more like that. Now, were there some questionable decisions there in the fourth quarter when it came to that final drive? 100%. It just seemed like they were playing too fast without thinking about what they were actually doing. That fourth down was just heartbreaking, the drop. He had it right there in his hands, just tried to keep running, didn't get to stop and catch it. So definitely a disappointing loss for the Panthers. But again, like you said, Kevin, I was more confident after this loss than really any other point in the season, like another win. I'm more confident after this loss against the Rams than I was after their win against the Rams. So I think this is a much stronger team. I feel like they have a better identity than what we thought they did at the beginning of the season. And I'm sure we can all say it. We all thought that there was going to be a lot of doubt, a lot of bad stuff happening for the Panthers this season. They somehow make it to the playoffs. Now, the only caveat I'll say here, because I know, Caroline, you said this is the standard. That was something they said in the locker room. An 8-9 regular season, I wouldn't consider the standard. Sure, going to the playoffs, definitely, but the way they got there should not be the standard at all.
Well, absolutely. And when you take that into consideration, I mean, throughout this entire season, whenever we were leading up to a game, it was, were we going to get the 8-win Panthers or were we going to get the 9-loss Panthers, and all of that consistency that they struggled with so much throughout the year. But I honestly, from looking at all of the reactions to this game and, a lot of people not being as upset with the Panthers as they could have been because of how they performed in it, I think they were counted out a little bit too much, given the fact that they'd beaten the Rams earlier this season when they were just as strong. A lot of people were like, automatically assuming that they couldn't do it again. They got really close, and then, talking about that defense down the stretch, and then that obviously the last drive wasn't what they wanted it to look like. But I think they were starting to hit their stride and figure things out right at the end there, which gives them a lot to, springboard off of heading into this next season. But of course, a lot of questions that need to be answered this offseason, especially with, a lot of eyes on their DC now for a lot of these open head coaching positions. I know that he was a request was made from the Raiders to interview him for their open spot. So there's a lot of things that are going to change. I think it's very early before we figure out exactly what the Panthers are going to look like next year. But this was, despite it being a loss, a pretty decent way to end out the season, Kevin.
It was. I wanted to go over that last drive one more time because I'm still so baffled by it. You talk 7-yard pass, 10-yard pass, 6-yard pass, 18-yard pass, incompletion, 11-yard pass, and then a 19-yard touchdown pass to Parkinson, who I can't stand, by the way, for personal reasons. But to just let him walk down the field like that is unbelievable. And he's got to have some kind of answers for, why just let everyone stay back? What's the point of that? Put some pressure on him. And I know it's late in the game and your guys are gassed, but you got to try to put some pressure on Stafford, and you just can't let him throw the ball all over the field like that. I guess that's an answer for another day. Goofy producer Nick is telling me it's time for a break, so we'll be back right after this.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. We got plenty of women's hoops to discuss, and we've got a big week ahead as South Carolina prepares to host a top 5 matchup with Texas. But let's first look back on this weekend. They hosted Georgia on Sunday. They won 65-43, but it wasn't their best performance of the season by any means. They really struggled offensively, only making 38% from the field. They were 2 of 17 from 3. It was pretty much an off day for Tessa Johnson. She was only 1 of 9. She didn't hit any threes, which is very abnormal for her, where she lives beyond the arc. But they played well defensively. They held Georgia to just 7 points in each of the first 2 quarters. They were outscored in the third quarter, but kind of righted the ship there to end out the game. But it's kind of a questionable performance heading into what will be such a big game with Texas this week. We'll get into that a little bit. But it was nice to see how they could kind of fix things throughout the game. And the most promising thing was seeing the return of Tanaya Latson. She'd been out since December 28th with a lower leg injury. She'd injured her ankle in that game. And then this was her first SEC game ever. She put up 9 points, 3 rebounds, and 3 assists in her first game back. And she was asked what it was like to be back out there with her team.
Obviously, it sucks not being out there, but I was able to learn from Chloe and from my coaching staff and just seeing things differently. I feel like today I just got my feet wet. I'm just looking to, continue to, build off of this today and, take things day by day.
So like I said, not the most concerning performance. They obviously still found the areas that they needed to excel in order to get the win over Georgia. And now they turn their eyes to newly ranked number 4 Texas this Thursday. South Carolina actually jumps them and moves up to number 2. So they are back in the top 2 as they enter this week's game. And this is because Texas just lost to LSU on Sunday. This was their first loss of the season, and there's been a lot of chatter online from head coach Vic Schaefer and what he had to say after they lost to the Tigers. Guys, I want to talk about this a little bit because he is not very happy with scheduling in the SEC, because he's talking about how they had to play South Carolina twice last year. They have to play LSU twice this year. And then his big point of emphasis is the fact that they have to face LSU and South Carolina in the same week. So he said, quote, the league, obviously have a vendetta against Texas. He says there's a stench to it. He's disappointed in the league to put the players in this position. And he ended it off by saying it's us against the world a lot of the time. So very poignant statements heading into this game. Guys, I just kind of want to take your assessment of how you feel about this, how it kind of, sets up this game on Thursday. Just how are we feeling, Teagan?
Look, in this league, obviously, it's, arguably the toughest league there is. You have to be capable of playing these teams. You can't just stand there and complain about, oh, I can't believe we have to play this team and then this team. It's the world against us. No, it's a test of if you're a good team or not, and if you can handle it. I think this is such a nothing argument from the coach. You got to win these games, Kevin.
I love the thought of the coach saying there's a vendetta against us in the SEC office. Like he thinks the SEC officials are just gathering around going, all right, guys, here's what we're going to do to get Texas this year. We're going to really just stick it to Texas. Like, they couldn't care less about Texas, all right? They've got South Carolina, they got LSU, they've got all these other teams. Everything, I'm betting, if there was a vendetta, it comes after that. After South Carolina and after LSU, that's when they start to worry about everyone else. So the fact that he thinks there's any kind of vendetta, this guy's just, what's the word? He thinks he's the main character, and they're not even close to the main character in the SEC, Caroline.
Yeah, I think that's probably pretty fair. We could go ahead and, tell Coach Schaefer horns down. That's probably how people feel. But to say that there's a vendetta, I think that's probably a little bit extreme. And that said, there's a reason that a lot of teams, regardless of what conference you're in, where you're at, whatever it is, you schedule really tough non-conference games, right? If we were going to put it into that perspective, because you're giving yourself an opportunity to go out and beat some really good teams and bolster your record. So you could really look at it from the complete opposite perspective and say, hey, this team has an opportunity to beat LSU and to beat South Carolina in the exact same week. And if you're able to do that, that only has a positive impact on you moving forward, especially when they start looking at resumes for the tournament and all kinds of things like that. So I feel like looking at it and complaining about it is probably not the correct reaction, but looking at it as like, yeah, this is an opportunity and we feel confident in our team to go out and win these 2 games in a week. That's probably a better way to approach it, but I don't know. What do you think, Julia?
Yeah, I want to provide a little bit more context for the argument, because he got on his soapbox for a little bit over 3 minutes and was talking about, he did mention that, this is not something that they can control, so they will always suit up and play anybody who's in front of them. But to everyone's point, he is still complaining about something that they can't necessarily change, and he called out kind of his own athletics department, saying that, hey, somebody hasn't stood up for us when we're in these situations and these scheduling situations. He said this isn't something that I should have to stand up and fight for almost. There's people in our, athletics offices and, all of the people who have an influence on these things, and just kind of called him out for not saying anything about the scheduling. But then on the other side of the coin, what do you say? What are you supposed to march into the SEC office and say, hey, we don't like our schedule, do something about it? Mind you, all the rest of the teams in the SEC have to face difficult programs week in and week out, because, to the point, this is probably, or is, the most difficult conference to play in and year out. So back to the beginning, this is a nothing argument. It just seems like he had a lot to say for not really any reason at all, Kevin.
How can you sit there and say, we'll play anybody, anywhere, anytime, except if we have to play these two good teams in a row? In that case, then it's just not fair, and this isn't right. So, I mean, this is a joke. I mean, the thing I wanted to end on is, you know, in all the years we've covered Dawn Staley and Kim Mulkey as well at LSU, could you ever imagine either one of them getting up and saying, this isn't fair that I have to play these two really good teams back to back? I mean, what's that about? It's a conspiracy, I guess. That'd be a joke. This guy's a joke for saying that.
Yes, Dawn Staley actually said that, you know, her team understands the implications of this game and that they're going to have to play a lot better than they played on Sunday, score more than 65 points to end up beating them. We will all have our eyes on that one on Thursday night. But let's go back to Sunday for a second. Clemson women's basketball also ends up in a really tight game. They end up losing 58-55 against Georgia Tech. It was a hard-fought game, really exactly what you would expect from conference play that was back and forth, just really gritty. Shots going in for both teams. It was actually a tie game at 45 with about 3 minutes to go. Demira Hines made a layup to tie it up, but Georgia Tech went on a roll there towards the end and held on to the win. I did want to highlight, though, that Clemson guard Mia Moore in the first quarter scored her 1,000th career point, so she's now the 32nd player to do that while wearing a Clemson jersey. So pretty positive spot there in the midst of a loss. Clemson women's hoops now 3-3 in conference play. Get a little bit of an off week this week. They'll be back in action on Sunday at home at Littlejohn when they host Wake Forest. But guys, don't go anywhere. We've got a little bit more basketball to talk about, so we'll be right back right after this break. Welcome back into Palmetto Sports Daily. Clemson men's basketball on a roll right now, jumping up into their first AP poll of the season earlier today, ranked at number 22 in the country. They beat Notre Dame 76-61 on Saturday for their 11th straight conference road win, 7th straight win of the season. Justin Porter went nuts, scoring a team-high 26 points. 3 Tigers were in double figures. It was an all-around team win on the road. Head coach Brad Brownell was feeling really good about that one, especially considering the quick turnaround during the course of the week, and also had some really nice words to say about JP.
JP was great in terms of knocking some balls down and got us some fast break layups, which was a big turning point in the game. But I'm just proud of our guys. I thought quick turnaround for us with a 9 p.m. start and on Wednesday, and I thought our guys were very focused and really executed some good things on offense too. We didn't turn the ball over much. We handled some of the double teams, which was something we practiced, and so very good road win against a very well coached team.
And the Tigers jumped to 4-0 in ACC play, tied at the top of the conference with number 6 Duke. They'll be back in action at home tomorrow night, hosting Boston College at 7. But Julia, no, they're not the only ones that were in action on Saturday. What happened with those Gamecocks?
Yeah, the Gamecocks had a tough loss to Georgia on Saturday. They lose 75-70 in a game they could have easily won. And now I know we're talking about a men's basketball loss in Columbia once again, but I want to say that they showed a lot of promise in this game in ways that they didn't necessarily last year in conference play. And I think that being 1-2 now, they have some things that they can work on and can win games because of it. And you can pinpoint exactly what that is. I mean, I could easily observe end of game communication issues while they were trying to come back and get close to Georgia again. And, you know, they're the 3rd ranked free throw shooting team in the country. They had an off day. They shot 71%. So I think there's a lot of things that they can build upon. And this team is honestly on the precipice of winning some games. And so I think that despite having losses to Vandy and Georgia, they've showed that they can win these games, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see them win a couple of games down the stretch. Teagan has Coastal.
Well, Coastal got their second Sun Belt win of the year against State this weekend, their second Sun Belt win of the year, and they came back from a 12-point deficit they had at halftime. The big reason for that was Boston College transfer Joshua Beadle with a career high of 25 points, really saving his team there. And this team just continues to kind of find the way that they're able to play with each other. Again, this is a team of pretty much all new people. There's pretty much one returner. It's Rashid Jones. He continues to be somebody who stands out for the Chants. These guys really learning to work together, really stepping up their defense. That's something Justin Gray talked a lot about in his post-game press conference. We're going to hope to see them continue this way in the future, but we're going to take a quick break here on Palmetto Sports Daily. We'll be right back.
Welcome back to Palmetto Sports Daily. A little bit more college basketball before we get out of here. All three low country teams here in Charleston were in action at home this past Saturday, including the College of Charleston, who continued their winning streak to 7 overall in a row as they picked up a win at home on Saturday, beating up against Hampton. Now, the College has been really keeping all these games pretty close, and this one was no exception. They went 74-70. Colby Dugan, another nice game for the College. I've talked about him before and really how much his return has kind of helped out the College. He had 22 points in that one as they win 74-70. Meanwhile, Charleston Southern, they had that big win streak at home. They had not lost at the Buck Dome so far this season. That changed on Saturday when they welcomed in first place High Point, but it didn't come without a fight. The Bucks taking High Point to overtime. This one back and forth the entire day, but CSU ends up falling 84-82. Despite the loss, though, CSU played really well, and I think they kind of showed the first place High Point team that they can stick with them. And big one for the Citadel as well, as they get their first victory over a Division I program this season as they get the win in overtime over Western Carolina, 79-77 on Saturday. So congrats to Ed Conroy and the Bulldogs. That's going to do it for Palmetto Sports Daily. We will see you right back here tomorrow.